I think that's an important starting point. Don't try to catch your kid. Do you know it's your job? Don't ever ask
Whoever's,
anyone.
it's everybody's job, right?
Yeah, just don't ask a question you know the answer to. It's like a horrible experience on the other end all the time. Never do that.
Right.
We both know that. I know you were the last one at the door. It was open. Let's figure this out. Look, I think the most important thing is figuring out how you can remember more often to close the door. So, okay, what would you need to remember? Now, my kid's going to be like, I don't know, I'll just remember. Look, I'm not satisfied with that. And it's not because I don't trust you. I know you want to remember. The truth is, I forget things all the time too. It's just what people do. I wonder if there's anything, and this is where I'm going to lead my kid to the well. I wonder if there's anything someone could do. Like my kid says nothing like, has anyone invented like a piece of paper with like a sticky thing that like one could like put near? And my son's be like, oh, a post, what? Oh my goodness. What would you do with a Post-it? Oh, I could probably write closed Sam.
Genius.
Okay. And this is what my son would do. So could you write that for me? No, sweetie. You know why I'm not going to do that for you? Because the rest of your life, you're going to be in situations, not about a door, but with some situation where something goes wrong and you're going to have to think about what to do to improve the next time. And I'm not going to take away something from you that's going to really help later, which is the process of actually doing the thing yourself, because it's actually going to feel really good to you. Not like fun good, but no, I'm going to expect that. And just to be clear, and this is, if I had to say this, I'm going to expect that by 8 p.m. And I just want to be clear with you about that because I really want to set you up for success.
And you know why most people don't do that as parents and definitely don't do that in leadership is because it takes time.
But it doesn't. I actually have to jump in this.
It takes time. It takes time and it takes patience.
No. Yes,
you have to set that all up. You have to learn how to say it. You have to wait for it. No.
You have to learn.
No.
Yes.
I agree with you. But I just know in my experience in leadership, most people will not do the work that I talk about or write about. But so here's a great example.
Because it takes time.
It takes energy. It takes effort.
Sure.
I remember I was giving a talk to a bunch of senior executives at some company, whatever it was. And they were going through really hard times. And I was talking about leadership and I taking care of people and making them feel safe and blah, 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 right? And one of the executives, literally this happened. He raises his hand and goes, I can't do anything that you're talking about. You have to understand, Simon, the pressure that we're under. I don't have time for the stuff you're talking about. And my response was, I hear you don't have time. I got it. I understand the stresses and the pressures are great. My question is, what were you doing in the good times? Like, how come you weren't building those environments in the good? Just my question is, what were you doing in the good times? But it goes back to the point was people feel pressure and they don't feel like they have the time. And it's the same reason people micromanage is because for me to let you try it and screw it up, and then I have to give you feedback and it's still not great. And then I have to let you do it again. And maybe by the 7th time, it'll be good. I'll just do it myself. It's because you have to have patience and time.
Yeah, I guess what I would say, parents say this to me all the time too. I don't have time to learn these things. I say, look, I have no idea about your schedule and your time. And I'm not going to lecture you about how you spend the time, the things you value. Not my style. But here's what I know. We either spend time preparing or reacting. And if we're used to spending time reacting, we don't quantify it as time because it's just our default. And all I know from parents is it actually takes a ton of time to yell at your kid, to watch something go wrong all the time. And it takes a lot of time to fall asleep at night when you're feeling really guilty.
And vent to your spouse instead of watching TV.
You're just used to it. So you don't mentally account for it.
That's good.
So that's
So I'll amend. They don't want to spend the time before.
It's just new.
But they're happy to spend the time after.
It's just anything that's new feels uncomfortable. And we always misinterpret discomfort as a sign of something wrong when it's a sign of something new. So I would say you're right. It will be a new way to spend time and it will mentally feel longer because anything in that new circuit does because it's unfamiliar.
I want to change the subject. So you and I have something a little bit in common, which is both of us have careers that kind of happened by accident. You know, we were both kind of doing our thing and then something happened and now we're doing something different.
Yes.
You know, and neither of us saw it, expected it, planned for it, had any idea it was going to happen. It wasn't in any plan. And just for those who don't know, you had minimal social media presence. I think when you started, you probably had like everybody else, like 50 followers, your friends.
Best.
Yeah. And then something happened. You put out a statement. It went viral. And all of a sudden, you're it.
there's so many things before that feel like really pivotal parts
Well,
that led to that.
It takes a long time to become an overnight success.
I had been having all these ideas because in my private practice, just to give a little backstory, what I was doing just a couple days a week in private practice, I was seeing adults for therapy, like you, me, therapy. I was doing couples therapy, individual therapy, and I was seeing teens. And then in other sessions, I was seeing parents of younger children for parenting work. And what started to strike me, and it just started to get louder and louder in me and felt so wrong, was, oh my goodness, I know the way I'm working with adults and teens and couples is like right. And I know it's right because it's this mix of different things and I'm just watching them change their lives, right? But then I have this next session with parents, and what I hear myself saying to them based on the training that I thought was right is, from a first principle perspective, the complete opposite of, I would never have an adult. Like if you came to me and said I did this bad thing, I would never take your phone. I would never shame you. I would never punish you. You would never come back to me as a therapist. I say, okay, that's not great. Let's figure it out, right? I'd give you some experiments. I'd give you practice. But I was talking about timeouts, punishments, sticker charts. That's what I was trained to do. And I heard myself saying it. And the juxtaposition from one session to another, it just exploded out. And I ended up saying to a couple, I was like, I don't believe what I'm telling you. I'm sorry. This is so awkward, but I need a couple days to figure out this whole parenting thing.
Did you have kids at the time?
I had kids at the time. I think that was part of it, because once it wasn't just learning in a vacuum about like timeouts and yes, and so linear, so
which
logical.
Is everything you got from a book.
Yeah, and from actually a very esteemed extra training institution in parenting, the one that was considered gold standard. I couldn't believe I got into this program, and but then I had kids, and I feel like you're going to get this, but there's all this like evidence-based in psychology. I believe in evidence. I believe in science. Okay. And I think what struck me in my practice was this evidence in my body that this was wrong.
Yeah.
It felt wrong. And once I said this thing to this couple, which I was like, I'm telling you to do times outs. I'm sorry. I don't believe in this. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It led to these months of writing. It opened something up. I was up at 4 a.m. I couldn't stay in bed. It was like something, a dam. And I was talking to my husband. And I remember one night, he's like, you should really put these thoughts somewhere. I think part of him was like, I'm trying to watch the football game. You know? And then boundaries.
Yeah.
I put up my first post, February 28th, 2020. And 2 weeks later, and this was the viral moment, New York City shut down for COVID. I had 200 followers exactly that day. I remember. It was March 13th. And at the time, what would happen is I'd write these posts just based on ideas. I had a full private practice. I don't know what I was doing with it. It felt more relieving than anything else. I had to get these ideas out. And I wrote this long carousel post. Okay. And the moment was the first part of it just said, our kids will remember more about how their family home felt during the coronavirus 19 epidemic than anything about coronavirus itself. Our kids are watching us and they're learning how to deal with uncertainty. Let's wire them for resilience, not panic. Swipe for 9 ideas how. And then this carousel had 9 ideas that were basically like 20 years of therapy crammed. It's like how I do into a post. So here's why I think it wasn't a surprise. My husband would always edit my things because I'm 0% perfectionist. I put things out all the time that just works in progress. And he'd be like, there's a typo here, there's a typo here. And I remember him looking at this post and saying to him, stop, I have to get this out. And I look back to who? To my mom's friends who are following me on Instagram, who don't even know how to use Instagram. Like I was like, who did I have to get that out? But there was this like thing. And so I did. And it went crazy.
It started to become part of the zeitgeist.
And people wanted more and more. And I think around this time I called my sister who's younger. I was like, how do you do an Instagram story? People want me to do stories. I wasn't on social media. I was telling all my clients to get off social media. I thought it was really bad, but this felt different. And then I just started putting out more and more. And I think during that time with so much uncertainty, it's not unlike the time with the fires. People want a sturdy leader. Sturdy leaders, they're not afraid to tell the truth. And I think in general, being told the truth by someone who you feel likes you and believes you, being even told the hard truth by someone who likes you and believes you is like a really amazing human feeling. And we love getting it because it's so rare in our life. And I think that's probably what was compelling.
From your data, and I'm sure it changes over time, but I'm curious in now, What skill is most lacking?
Boundaries.
Say more. I want to go down deep in this because I think it's an unbelievably misunderstood concept.
100%.
And just from a work standpoint, I've had many conversations with people who talk about that they have boundaries and they want their boss, their company to respect their boundaries. And then the great irony is they respect nobody else's. Anyway, I could give you specific examples, but I'll start with that. Anyway,
so I want to give you my definition
misunderstanding
of
of what they are and how they work.
That's exactly right. Having clear definitions of what things are is like the foundation for doing something well.
Yeah.
Clarity. So I'm going to share my definition of boundaries because I hear this all the time too. I'm setting boundaries with my kids and they don't respect it. My mother-in-law doesn't respect it. And then I say, give me an example. And almost always I'll say, like, with love and respect, that's not a boundary.
So give me an example of one that's not a boundary.
I tell my kid over and over not to jump on the couch. They know not to jump on the couch. They're old enough. They know better. They do that. I tell my mother-in-law not to stop over unexpectedly. Like, she has to tell me, and she keeps doing it. They keep violating my boundaries. Neither of those are boundaries. Here's my definition, and it's super simple and usable. A boundary is something you tell someone you will do, and it requires the other person to do nothing.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay. A boundary with the mother-in-law who stops by would sound like this. Hey, look, I don't want it to get to this. I think I've asked you a lot of times. Please call before coming over. There's a reason for that. It's the order of our day. I don't do great when I'm startled. And so I just want to tell you, this is new, and I hope it doesn't get to this, but the next time you come over unannounced, I will come to the car and say, no, I can't have you here for a visit. I know it's going to be hard for both of us. That is what I'm going to do. A boundary is something I tell someone I'm going to do, and it requires someone else to do nothing. So someone doesn't respect my boundary, it's not even part of the equation, because when we say that, we're saying I'm giving away all of my power to someone else.
What if a boundary is unreasonable?
What does that mean?
What if it is the other way around, where it's the parent-in-law who says, these are my grandkids.
I'm going to come over to your house.
I'm going to come over to your house and